welcome, welcome. It's so good to see everybody out there. We see people filing in and coming in to watch today's Clubhouse meeting, and I'm just so thankful that you chose to spend a little time with me. We have a lot of great things planned for you today that I think you're really going to enjoy. And if you would, just over in the comments, just put down what city and state, or if you're watching from a different country, what country you're watching from. We get such a kick out of seeing how far-reaching our Clubhouse meetings have gone. So we would love to know where you're from and love to see you. And I just, I'm so thankful that you chose to spend a little time with us today. We have simulcast this now also on our website. So you can go to our Facebook group to watch it at the Quilted Joy Clubhouse. You can also watch it over on YouTube on our Quilted Joy YouTube channel. But we also have now embedded the video on our website under the Quilted Joy Clubhouse page in the community section of our website. So we have lots of choices for you to tune in. The only thing is, if you're watching over on the website, you can't comment and talk to other folks, which you can do on both YouTube and on Facebook. So I'm so happy that you're here. Are we getting people filing in, Megan?
We are, yeah.
All right, where's some people from? Tell me. I get such a kick out of this.
We've got Jacques from Illinois.
Jacques from Illinois. Jackie?
Jackie.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said Jacques. I was like, oh, that's so nice.
We've got Elizabeth from Central New York.
Central New York, Elizabeth. And you said Ray in Ohio was on there, and Brenda.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From Mid-Michigan.
And
all over
from
the place.
Lynn in Michigan, welcome, welcome, welcome. And for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, I want to thank you especially for joining us and spending some time with us, and hopefully you'll find this helpful and you'll come back next month. And truly, if you are looking to kind of thank us for our efforts for putting on the Clubhouse, sharing this with one other person that you think might find it interesting would be like just the best compliment ever. So if there's somebody that you can invite to join, to watch, of course it's all recorded, so if you're not able to watch us during our Clubhouse meetings live, you can always watch it later. We do it the first Wednesday of each month at 1 o'clock Eastern, and I did the math this morning, that's 10 a.m. Pacific, so you can find your time zone in between all of there. So welcome, and more folks are kind of filing in, and while they are doing that, I wanted to also make sure that you were signed up for our Quilted Joy newsletter. And our newsletter, we send out a lot of great little tutorials and information and tips and tricks about machine quilting. We also send out some fun links to some things that I have found online that I think are pretty groovy that I want to share with all of my quilty friends, and so that's you. So please do sign up for our newsletter. I think that you will find it helpful. We do not send out a newsletter, every stinking day and share your name with everybody. We do not send your name to anyone else. It's just for us, and we have a lot of great things in that newsletter. So I also wanted to share some big news, and if you get our newsletter, you saw this in the newsletter that you got this morning. So on the Love of Quilting magazine, I am on the cover. Yeah, so I'm a cover girl finally. I've never been on the cover before. I've had my name on the cover of Love of Quilting magazine. That was a few months ago, and that was way cool. Actually, I guess it was last spring. That was way cool, but this is the first time a quilt of mine has ever made the cover. And they don't tell you stuff like this. Like, I just got this magazine in the mail the way everybody else does, and I opened it up and I about fell on the floor. So excited. So this is the September-October issue of Fons & Porter Love of Quilting, and that's my quilt on the cover, and it's made with art gallery fabrics, and you have to see the photos because there's little gnomes, houses, and there's little bug lanterns and little snails, and it's just the most adorable fabric ever. And so all the instructions are in there, and then there's a second quilt as well in there of mine called Cynthiana, and that one was pieced by Melanie Peterson, and then I did the quilting, and there's lots of great photos of the feathers that I put in a triangle on Cynthiana, and we're going to look at how this particular motif is made when we talk about feathers in a triangle in our meeting today. So look in there, and I'm trying to find the page, and there it is. I'm trying to find the page in here. Okay, so this one, let's see, it uses split rectangles and flippy corners and V blocks, and let me see if I can hold it up here. So there's the interior page, and then you've got your instructions, and then there's the big, there's the big beauty shot. Right, so what a thrill to be in the magazine. I recently moved and I was cleaning out all of my old magazines, and I came across a huge stack of Love of Quilting magazines from like 2002 when I first started piecing, when I first started quilting, and I had saved every one of them. And I tell you what, if you had told me in 2002 when I first started quilting that someday my quilt would be on the cover of the magazine, I would have told you you were totally out of your tree. So anyway, look for it. It was a thrill. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about how to put feathers in a triangle. So we have talked about feather spines and different types of feather spines. We're really having like an extended feather class this year. And we've talked about different kinds of plumes, including the 5 beginner plumes that I think is where you should start. Just know that there are so many types of feathers that you can stick on a spine. And so we're going to talk about a couple of ones today, but there are dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different plumes. So you need to find the plume that kind of works for your brain as you start to play with the flow and how you fit these feathers into shapes. And once you kind of get that down and you know your happy plume, the plume you like to make, then you can branch out and try some other plumes. So we did setting feathers in a square. We did seems like we'd put them in another shape too. I can't remember. My mind's blank. But you can go back and you can rewatch all of those old those older Clubhouse episodes if you're interested in seeing more feather education from us. Curves, thank you. Yeah, we did, thank you. Yes, we did fitting feathers on the interior of a curve, and we did fitting feathers on the exterior of a curve. So kind of giving you the building blocks of how to think about feathers and build feathers, and then now we're going to try to fill them into shape. So today we're going to work with a triangle shape, and of course, the thing about triangles is you've got isosceles triangles and equilateral triangles. So there's and small ones and big ones and gigantic ones. So we're going to play with a few different kinds of triangles. Just know that this is a massive topic. And I'm just trying to give you some skills for how to approach the triangle that you have in front of you. So the first thing I want to talk about is how to break that triangle down, because it's a giant shape. And what we want to do is we want to give ourselves smaller areas to worry about so we don't get freaked out, you know, with that giant triangle. So I've got a triangle here drawn up on my screen. And the first thing that I would do with my triangle is I would start to give myself some kind of divider line so that it's more, it's easier for me to see where I am going to kind of stay between. So I would chalk out that miter. And that just gives me a visual representation of what I'm going to be doing. And then I'm going to draw actually a spine. And so again, I would chalk this out, and I would probably use a ruler. It kind of depends on how well you like your freehand curves. So I'm just going to do a freehand curve like that. Okay, so I need to put what's called a keystone feather in the cleft of where these two spines intersect, because that will make it far easier for me to fill these spines with feathers. So I'm just going to make a teardrop keystone feather in the cleft of those two spines. And I would not chalk that out. I would actually stitch that. My divider line here is going to give me a boundary. So when I put feathers on the spine, I need to stay inside my boundary area and on the correct side of my spine. So I've got this spine chalked out. I've done my keystone feather, and then I'm just going to do curled feathers because this is my happy place. So I put a curl and then I bump out. So a curl, come to the top, and then I kick out. And I just want to, as my friend Karen McTavish said in a feather class that I saw a long time ago, and I really love the idea, is think skinny thoughts, yeah? So when you head down for your feathers, think skinny thoughts. And there are so many great feather teachers out there. If you want to know kind of some of my feather heroes. So I got to the top, and here's where I would trace down the spine. And now I can head towards this bottom half of my spine. Okay, so my feather heroes, I would say Karen McTavish, she specializes in what I would call Victorian feathers, so very skinny, very luscious, very formal, gorgeous feathers. She's a feather hero of mine. Another quilting feather hero of mine is Beth Ann Nemish. She has a really great book called Fast to Fancy, and it has so many different feather plumes in it that are really, it's a really great reference book. And she has some shortcuts to feathers too that I really, really love. All right, then I come down the spine and I'm ready to do this side, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do the bottom. And I'm gonna speed up a little bit, so I'm just drawing on my tablet here. So don't be surprised if it doesn't look all that hot. All right. And by the way, I get asked this all the time, what are you drawing on? So I have, it's a free drawing program. I'm a mat girl, so I would come down my spine, and now I'm ready to head this way. And I'm gonna curl, and I'm gonna stop at my divider line, and then I'm gonna kick out, and I would curl. And don't get yourself bunched up and think that you have to, mirror what's going on the other side of your divider line. You are not a computer, thank goodness. And so your feathers are freehand feathers. Your feathers are not going to be exactly the same on each side of your spine. And I'm going to put a terminal feather here on the end. I actually prefer that. So a terminal feather is this end, it's right at the end of that spine, and that gives me an end point. I actually prefer that freehand look. Okay, so here's a smaller triangle, and this is more similar to that triangle I was showing you in that Cynthiana quilt that's in the magazine. So I'm just gonna do another divider line chalked out in the middle, and I would start this one from the center. If I'm doing a lot of these, so imagine, okay, let's see, imagine a border, right? And I've chalked out or stitched out triangles, and I want to put feathers in each of these triangles as I move across the border. So I need a way to enter, because my magic portals, my entry points, are the corners of my triangles. And so what I would do is I would just do a little sneaky little S-curve into my dead center. And now I'm going to just grow my feathers up. And I'm going to do this actually as a spineless feather. If you want to look at what spineless feathers are, look at some of our past episodes on feathers, and we talk about how to do a spineless feather. And this is a spineless long arm feather. So I'm going to kick out to a big feather plume on that side. I'm going to kick out, and I'm going to do it on this side. So each of these feather plumes is independent of its neighbor. And we grow up the spine until we get to the top, and then I'll do a terminal feather on the top, head down, and then that same little kick out to get to this exit point where I can enter my next triangle. Okay, so let's look at another one. Let's see, I'm going to do don't save. So this one is, this program is Paintbrush because I'm a Mac girl, and it's a freebie thing. There's tons out there. You likely already have one, in fact, on your computer already. So just look for a paint program that's already on your computer. And then rather than drawing with a mouse, I'm just drawing with a stylus. It's a graphics pad. It's made by Wacom. It was like $60. They make them in all price points. I just got the entry-level one, and it lets me draw with a pen as my mouse rather than the mouse, because the mouse is hard to draw with. Okay, so I've got another triangle here, and I'm going to chalk out that same miter divider line, and I'm going to give myself a curve from this point in. So I would chalk this out, yeah, so from this point in and chalk that out, and now I'm ready to get started. So I've got my chalk down the center, I've got my chalk on my spine, and I'm ready to get started. And of course, there are lots of ways that you can mark a spine. You don't have to use chalk. I just don't want you using a Frixion pin. And the reason is those are designed to come off with heat, but they stay in your fabric. And so if your quilt gets cold, so you ship it somewhere and it's been in the belly of an airplane, or it's just in a cold room, all of those marks can come back. Okay, so we were talking about pins. So the other one that I really, really like, it's called a Marvy Air Erasable, and it's a water erasable. It's got 2 points on it. And I like the lavender. I'm not super fond of the pink or the white. I like the lavender. Okay, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this side. And then just regular old school chalk also is good. I really like the Soline mechanical chalk pencils because they have a very fine tip to them, and I can get really good control when I chalk. All right, I'm going to pick up speed here, which means it's going to get even messier, but I always say I can quilt better than I can draw, so I'll prove it here in a minute. Okay, and we were also talking about my quilting heroes. I'm going to put one last feather here. I would go down my spine and I would tie off and restart, or I would stitch in the ditch and ditch, 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 obviously in the ditch, but I'm showing you, until I could get to this next point in the triangle. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to start with a single teardrop, and then I'm going to do a curl, and then I'm going to kick out. And like I said, watch our 5 feather plumes for beginners episode that we did last month. And I think that you will, was it last month? I think it was June actually. Yeah, and you'll see this feather, because this is my go-to, this is my happy place. Okay, so my other feather quilting hero that I have is Judy Madsen. She makes amazing feathers. Some of them are very whimsical. I really like her style. And then Linda Herskruff of the Quilted Pineapple. She has very traditional, beautiful feathers in her very traditional quilts. So look for those gals online. I'm going to curl actually. And they have just beautiful, beautiful work. The thing about this is you just want to doodle, doodle, doodle. You don't want to just try this for the first time on your quilt. You're going to want to doodle. I'm going to put one more little feather right here. If you ever feel like there's empty space and you need to fill it, you know what's good for that? A little curly curl, yeah? Or even a little twirl. So I'm just going to twirl out and twirl. It's like a feather frond. Okay, so those would be a couple of choices. Now we're going to get super big, yeah, for the, we'll go medium and then we'll go big. So I'm going to close this and let's take a look at this one. So a different orientation. Like I said, there's so many different styles of triangle in quilting, so and sizes of triangles in quilting, so you're going to kind of need to find out what the space is that you need to fill. So I'm going to put a dashed line down the center to give myself a guideline. And then I'm also going to add a 45-degree dash line out. So this would be for a larger space, but I need this kind of fence to give myself an idea of where I'm headed. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do my center keystone, but in this case it's not a rounded top. I'm going to do kind of a candle flame melon shape up and back, and then I'm also going to echo that. And then inside that I'm going to put a curl in one direction and a curl in the opposite direction, and then head on down. And so now I'm going to start with my right hand side and I'm going to swing all the way out, and I'm going to put a curl here in the tip of that, and then I'm going to head back. And as I head back, I'm going to add these curls, but I'm going to stay inside that boundary area that I chalked, but I'm going to reach up and I'm really going to tackle that space. All right, so now I'm down to the base, and now I'm going to work up my little candle flame. Again, I'm going to stay inside my chalked space so that I'm not crossing over into my neighbor's area. I'm staying in my little section of my triangle, and I'm really tucking that tail of that curl in, tucking it way in. If you don't tuck that curl way in, what happens is you get kind of a hook rather than a curl. All right, let's put one little one up here at the top. And now I'm going to head down, and I head down the side until I get to the bottom. Let's do the same thing on this side. And then I'm going to curl. So if you don't tuck that tail way in, you get kind of a claw or a hook. And I don't know, it might be your jam. It's not my favorite. I really like the kind of sexy curls that really tuck their tails way in. I just like that. It just looks, I don't know, more finished to me. Okay, so now we're ready to head onto this side of our fence. And again, we're really going to kick out. And so one of the other feathers that we talked about in that episode was sisters. We did big sisters and little sisters. And so this is sort of that same idea where you're just curling. So make some, let's put one more up here. I'm going to put it a little lower though. Yeah, and then head on back down. So make some triangles on paper and practice that. And I think that you will have some fun. I just want to show you one other, let me see if I can erase. I don't know how far back, Nat, of course. Okay, let me open recent, and I'm going to get the large triangle out again.
That's where you are.
Oh, that's where I was. Okay, so I think I have to close it, and then I have to reopen it, and it'll get rid of that drawing so that we can, large triangle, so we can see better. Okay, so anytime you're going to tackle a space, you need to divide it up. So we had talked about that I divided it here, and I did a 45, and I did a 45 here. And so then I would say you need to just chalk out your spines. So I just wanted you to see if I chalk out a spine here and I chalk out a spine here and I just want to do simple feathers. Again, I want to stay on that side of my fence and head up this spine and do the underside. Same thing with this one. I'm going to head up this side. And then for the center one, I can come out, curl, and stay on the right side, in this case, of my chalked spine, head on up, and then when I come back down, I can stay on this side, on the left side of my chalked line and work my way up. All right, and then I'd head on up. But I'm not going to draw that whole thing for you because I think you get the idea. You just want to decide where your spines are going, and you want to mark your spines inside your area. So, Kelsey, I've got some triangles here. Is it helpful to move the camera over so they can see it? Okay, so I have marked these triangles with Sharpie, but right, we're not doing that on a quilt, yes? Okay, so I just did it so that you could see it on camera, and I am going to go ahead, let's see, I need to mark my 45. So I've just got a piecing ruler laid out, and I'm just going to chalk my mitered line on there so that I have a nice crisp line to use. And let's do one of those designs that we were looking at. So I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top, and I'm using my APQS Millennium, and I'm just going to leave it in that needle down position because that gives me a little bit more control as I work. And the first thing I'm going to do is that keystone feather. Kelsey, should I put it in manual mode or keep it on stitch regulator mode? Sometimes we put it in manual mode just because it helps the camera a little bit. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I should have chalked a spine here, and I'm going to go ahead and chalk a spine here. And by the way, Kelsey, can you take the wide camera? If that whole like freehand spine thing gives you makes you break out in hives. You can find rulers that are French curves that have all of these glorious, wonderful curves, interior and exterior curves that you could use to mark that spine. And of course, if you're using it this way and you need it to go the other way, you just flip the ruler over and Shazam, there you go. So these are made by Beth Ann Nemish. I told you she was one of my feather heroes, and we have these on the website. This is Lily Lines, and she has a number of different ones, but her rulers are especially geared towards marking areas for more of this feather work that we're going to be doing. Okay, let's do the bottom side. So the first plume, and I'm going to do these as my curled feathers, just because those are the feathers that I can typically do and talk at the same time. I don't know if you've ever tried to stitch and talk, but man, is it hard. Last night, my husband and I, we went to a cooking class, and I'm headed back the spine, and now I'm going to head up this side of the spine, and I'm going to stay inside my fence here, inside my boundary. The first feather is going to go up and curl and touch that keystone feather, and now I'm ready. So we were taking this cooking class, and of course it was a grill class, so it was outside. It was great. It was a really wonderful class, but she couldn't talk and cook at the same time. And so she'd put something on the grill and she'd say, and now we're going to cook this for only 2 minutes. And then she'd start talking, and inside my head I'm like, man, it's got to be like 8 minutes by now. And it really gave me anxiety, because I was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, try it sometime. Try to talk and stitch. It's not easy. Okay, I'm going to go up this side of my spine, and I'm working on the bottom side of my spine. Now I should say that the very first thing that I would do, because I'm working inside this I'm going to put a terminal feather, and then I'm going to head back down. The first thing I would do, here's my curl, is stitch in the ditch, because I need to stabilize that triangle. If I start filling my triangle with a bunch of gorgeous feathers, but I don't ditch it first, things aren't going to be very square when I'm done. So this is one of those instances where you really do need to ditch first, but of course I didn't, so that's why I brought it up. All right, I'm going to break my threads, and then let's take a look at what I did. So there's is that good, Kelsey? Can we see okay? Awesome. All right, so here is yeah, please. Oh, good. I'm glad there are questions. Yes.
So Patsy from Mississippi wants to know, would you do the feathers in the triangle of a friendship star? And what about the square in the middle?
Yeah, so it depends on the size of that friendship star, because you could really lock yourself into some tiny, tiny feathers if you're dealing with, more like a 10-inch friendship star, but it would be a wonderful place for a little bit of feathers. I probably would only be able to get the keystone feather, that first center feather, and then maybe 2 on each side in a shape like you're talking about. The center of a friendship star, that square, again, it depends on how big that square is, but take a look at some of the feathers in a square ideas that we did in that Clubhouse meeting. But if you're talking about more like a 10-inch or 12-inch friendship star, it might not be big enough for all that. By the way, I've got a giant friendship star behind me. This one is all about grid work and grid ideas, and that'll actually be in the 3600 season of Love of Quilting, the 3600 series of Love of Quilting. Okay, so I've got my, next triangle chalked out here, and I'm just going to bring my bobbin thread up to the top. Were there any other questions, Megan?
What's the name of the chalk pencil you're using?
The name of the chalk pencil is, this is the one, is this one by Soline?
No, that one's the Bowen.
The Bowen, okay.
Refillable cartridge set.
Yeah, so it's got, can't see?
No, we're good.
Now we're good. So it has, at least in my music class in high school, this is how they did it with the chalk up on the chalkboard, and it has an eraser on the other end. So you can actually get it pretty skinny tip. All right, we're gonna put those spineless feathers in this. So I'm working on both sides. One more, and then I'm going to put a terminal feather up there at the top and head back down. And then I would do some tacking stitches and break my thread. I could have done those tacking stitches at the top and broken my thread up there since it's a spineless feather, and it might actually have looked a little nicer and neater. Okay, so hopefully you guys can see that. All right, so let's do one last one. And I'm going to, any other questions, Megan, while I'm marking the miter on this next one?
Pat wants to know if you ever do feathers with bliss on.
With bliss, well, bliss is bliss on an APQS machine. It replaces your wheels with ball bearings. So it's not that you can ever turn bliss off. Bliss is on the frame. And I love bliss. If you're going to do any kind of free motion and you're looking at an APQS machine, I highly encourage you to get bliss. It completely and utterly changes the feel of the machine. So I've marked a mitered line on this triangle, and I've chalked in those two spines like we talked about before, and then I'm just going to work my way up them. So yes, so bliss is certainly something that I love when I'm doing free motion, and I generally keep that stitch regulator on. I do recommend that you occasionally play with your machine with the stitch regulator off, just to kind of get to know it a little bit more. I think it'll surprise you how much it changes the feel of the machine. You just have to let go of the need to have every stitch be the same when you're in manual mode, but it can help you if you're struggling with movement. Put some practice material on, go into manual mode, and play. And I think that you will find you kind of get your groove, get your feel of the shapes, and then you can kick that stitch regulator on to better regulate your stitches. But don't be worried about regulation of stitches in manual mode when you're just practicing. All right, so we're going to do this side. Any other questions, Megan? So thank you so much for asking questions. I typically kind of zone out and forget to ask what questions are coming in, but you guys always teach me how to better teach and explain things by the questions that you ask, so I do appreciate it. All right, so now I'm headed up this side of the spine. So one of the things I hope you're noticing is just how very different we can have our spines evolve and grow in a shape, whether that shape is a triangle or a square. I'm gonna put, let's put that little curly Q I was talking to you about before right there, and then I'm gonna go back down the spine and cut my threads, and then we'll take a look at that. Uh-oh, did I just hit you, Kelsey? Sorry, I just moved the machine back. It's a 26-inch throat, and I think I knocked Kelsey across the room. Okay, so here's that triangle that we just did, where it's growing from the corners of the triangle rather than over here where it grew from the base of the triangle, the right angle of the triangle. These grew from the whatever angle that is. Our geometry teachers in the audience can tell me what that is. I think it's a 45. But I've been wrong many times before, so I won't pin my reputation on it. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful to see how feathers fit into a shape. Next month, we're going to look at how feathers can fit into a diamond shape, because that can throw people. So when you think about where you're going to encounter diamond shapes in your quilting, you'll see them a lot in like a Lone Star. That's a super common place to find a diamond. But they're also really dramatic in a border design. So just a wide border where you're like, I don't know what the heck to put in this big old border. You can actually stitch out diamonds and fill those with feathers, and it's spectacular. So we're going to look at feathers in a diamond shape for our next meeting in September. I do want to thank our sponsor, APQS. APQS machines are 100% handcrafted in Iowa. They are loved the world over, and you can quilt forever with that lifetime warranty that you'll find on an APQS machine. If you're interested in learning more about an APQS machine, contact your local APQS store, your APQS dealer, or the factory. You can also visit them at apqs.com. So thank you so much, APQS. We really love you. All right, I have a wonderful studio tour to show you. This is Alana Bryant, and we recorded this a couple weeks ago, so we got all of the glitches, the technical glitches out to show you her studio. So let's take a look at what she's enjoying with her machine. Hi, Alana. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, thanks.
It's so good to see you. Now tell me, what city are you in?
Amherst, Virginia.
Amherst, Virginia. Fabulous. All right. So is your studio in your home or is it in a separate building? I know you live on a farm.
Yes, it's in a long room above the garage.
Perfect. All right. So I can't wait to see it. So but before I do, I just want to say I love the llama behind you. It's adorable. Okay. So turn your camera around so we can see your space.
Okay. Yeah, that llama is named Alejandro.
Oh, okay.
And
So
there.
yes, too cute. So first of all, windows and daylight always draw my attention into a space. So you have skylights in there.
Yeah, there's 4 of them. I'm trying to
Oh,
move slow so it doesn't lag too much.
yeah. Oh, so it really lights that space up. And
It does.
I love that you have a couch in there so that you can read a book or relax or, take a break or sit and do some handwork. And a dog.
Yep, that's Whiskey. He's 8 months old.
At first, I thought that was like a fuzzy blanket. Okay, so let's see your space. You've got a piecing area.
Yep, this is where I do the sewing.
Uh-huh. Wonderful.
And then I've got a wall of those great IKEA cube
Yeah.
shelves. And I've got, I don't know, a ton of them. But that's where all the fabric lives.
Got it.
And I've got it mostly sorted, by color in the cubes.
Uh-huh.
And then as we get towards the back of the room is where I keep my patterns.
Oh, sure. Oh, because
Yeah.
you do some garment making.
I do some, yeah. I'm mostly just to find things that fit me.
Uh-huh.
And so, I have, anytime I want to check on the farm, I have this window that you can see my horses out there and I can see the barn and I can see people are coming up the driveway, but that's the Blue Ridge Mountains in the back and that's our view.
Awesome.
So then I have some more patterns and then I'm going to flip around the other way where we can see my Millie.
Awesome. Okay, so do you know roughly the size of your room?
It's roughly 30 by probably 15. Or no, I'm sorry. It's 14 at the widest and 12 at the narrowest.
Okay. And so you were able, is that a 12-foot table?
It is.
Okay, so you were able to get your long arm in that space, a 12-foot table in that space, and you actually have both ends of your table where you can walk around both ends of the table.
I do, yes. So I have
Okay.
I have just enough room to walk around.
Uh-huh.
I do have enough room to do the pantographs, although I have the IntelliQuilter, so mostly I do the pantographs by machine.
Sure.
By computer.
Sure.
Yeah, and then so when I walk back to the other side, this is my ironing station.
Uh-huh.
And I keep my rulers up on the wall, my cutting rulers up on the wall behind it.
Perfect.
And then I have my, my idea board. When I see something that I like, I just throw it up there.
Fabulous.
And then I have, this table is kind of crowded right now, but it's got my serger and my cover lock. And then my sister's machine, she's been coming over and sewing with me once a week. So she's just left it here.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very
So we
nice.
have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my threads are stored, my sewing threads and for my cover stitch are up on the wall.
Uh-huh.
And then I've got my batting in this.
Oh, look at that.
I
Did
know
you
I
do
love.
that?
No, I bought it. I love this thing. If I can remember, I'll find where I bought it and send it to you. But it holds 3 rolls, and it's got
Uh-huh.
this little shelf. And I don't. Let me show
Is
you.
it
It's got a
on
little.
wheels?
It's got a little. It does have wheels, and it's got
Uh-huh.
a little tape measure right there, so you can just roll
Oh,
off what you need and cut it.
very nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
and then
that's a
so
nice way to keep it neat.
yeah, and it's off the floor and it rolls
Yeah.
off pretty easily, but it does that storage does take quite a bit of room.
So tell me what, because you've got 3 different batting types there. The one on the bottom, is that wool?
That is wool.
Okay, wool. What's the one in the middle?
That's the blend. I think it's 70/30. It's from Dream.
Yeah, 70/30. Okay, and then above that,
Is the midloft poly.
a midloft poly. And so when do you use the poly?
So I've just really been playing with all. I haven't tried the wool yet, but I've just been playing with all of them. I've actually been using the poly the most because I had never used it before I got this roll, and I'm really enjoying it. It's much nicer than I think I expected.
Oh, well, good. So
Um,
where you showed us where you put your threads for the serger, but where do you put your threads for the long arm?
oh, great question. I'm glad you asked. So I got these. I saw this on one of your other Looky Loo tours. So I got
Yeah.
the IKEA Alex cabinets, and I have 5 of them underneath.
Oh, nice.
So, and I haven't even filled them all up yet, but I've got my threads all in
And
one
so they have,
cabinet.
what's that black liner? Did you add that?
I did. It just came from Lowe's. It's for toolboxes, and it keeps them
Okay.
from rolling around and sliding.
Yeah.
So I've just got all my, yeah, they're all filled down
Very
here with
nice.
my glide thread.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and then I've got another one for my rulers that I'm just now building up my stash of rulers, I guess.
Uh-huh. Do you have a
And
favorite right
yeah,
now?
I have a favorite ruler.
Yeah.
No, I've only used the straight rulers so far. I've been practicing my stitch and ditch, and I think I'm getting pretty good at that. And so I guess I'm sort of expanding one tool in my toolbox at a time.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Alana, can you turn the camera around so we can see your smiling face? Great. Well, I love seeing your room. You have a wonderful space, and those skylights make such a big difference, bringing in the daylight. So good for you. You really created your own little oasis above your garage. So thank you for showing us your area. Um, do you have 3 things you'd recommend to your bestie? They don't have to be quilt related.
I do actually. I've been loving home chef meals lately. We order a couple a week, and it comes like all prepackaged and like fresh ingredients that are like, if I buy a whole clove of garlic, half of it gets wasted. But they send you like just the 2 little pieces you need, and and it's been a time saver, and it's not any more expensive than going to like Hardee's for lunch. And so I love that. And you mentioned garment making. I have been learning to make clothes that fit me because no matter what weight I'm at, I'm not the same shape as a mannequin. So Patterns for Pirates is a great independent clothing company, and they
Patterns for pirates.
yes,
Okay.
and yeah, so they have a very size inclusive line, and their instructions are very that. Uh, and then the third thing I think would just be a piece of advice, which is it's real easy, especially when what you love sewing is indoors and we have, quarantine or isolation or whatever you want to call it. It's real easy to just stay inside and do that all day. But for mental health, go outside, even if it's just to sit outside for your coffee in the morning or something, or get some exercise, but just spend some time every day outside.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Alana. I really appreciate your time. I love your space. You have created a little oasis for you. If people want to connect with you online, how can they do so?
I have a business page. It's called Quilt Top Farm, and it's on Facebook. They can find me there. They can also find my farm page as La La Land.
That's great. Well, we will see you in the clubhouse, Alana. Thanks again for all your time, and I will talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much, Alana. I really appreciate it. The time that you took to show us around. You have a lovely studio. I love all of the sunlight and daylight you have pouring into your room. Beautiful space. Isn't it interesting to see how people carve out spaces in their homes for their passion to enjoy and nurture their soul? I really love being nosy and seeing what everybody's got going on in their studio. It's always fun. All right, so I told you about my quilting feather heroes. And anytime I find a product or a person that I just love, I want to share it with everybody because I'm just so enamored by them. So I want to tell you about a woman that I just fangirl all over every time I see her because, man, she's got it totally figured out. And it's Deb Tucker. And Deb Tucker, she makes Studio 180 rulers. And I've started using her rulers in so many of my piecing projects because they just make everything so much easier. Basically, a lot of her rulers make the units just slightly bigger, and then you use her rulers to trim them down so they are perfection each time. And I just love the way that she thinks through things. It all makes super great sense to me. She's got videos showing how to use her rulers. She is a smart lady. So they are my favorite things this month, and you can get you can see all the Studio 180 rulers there on our website. Just follow that link, and then you get 15% off of any of those Studio 180 rulers that you want to pick up, and that's good through August the 7th of course, this year. So look for that coupon code and get 15% off. And I just wanted to show you. So Kelsey's like, well, which one is your favorite? And I'm like, I got to pick one? I don't want to pick one. So I picked two because these are the ones that I typically use over and over again. So this one is the squared ruler. So you use this one to do square and square units. This goes up to 6 inches. I also have that big dog, and it'll do up to 12-inch square and square units. It'll also do economy blocks, so square and a square and a square and a square and a square units as well. And then the other favorite of mine are V-blocks. I really enjoy making V-blocks. I think they add a lot of drama, but I don't want to paper piece those suckers. And so this ruler makes it super, super simple. So this is my other favorite ruler for right this second. Tomorrow, ask me again, Kelsey, and I'll have a totally different answer. But I want to show you what I love the most about that square and a square ruler. So I've got a little square and a square here that I've pieced. And you can see he looks kind of ratty, like he just woke up out of bed. And so what's always hard is to trim these little guys down so that they have the perfect amount of seam allowance there from the tip, so you don't cut your tips off when you're making the square and a square. And so I just want you to see with her ruler, what she does is she's got these little X marks. So I can put, will be a 4-inch finished. So I put the little X on the 4 on that corner, and then I put the X on the 4 on that corner. And then, do you see, it's just a little bit that I'm going to shave off of this unit, but I will have a perfectly perfect square and a square unit when I'm done by using the ruler. So all of her rulers are fantastic, but today those are my two favorite, and tomorrow I'll have two other favorites that I will have. Okay, so I did want to ask if you would take the time to review us on Google. It helps us reach more people with the whole algorithm thing as they decide who to serve us up to people. And we are a little woman-powered company here in Louisville, Kentucky. And we just appreciate all of the love that you guys give us. And if you all would take the time, I do read each and every review personally. And it just means so much to me that you support my little company through the big Google machine. So if you would just give us a little love, and that helps other people find us. And it's a nice way to say thank you for all that we try to bring to you each month. So thank you for that. All right, so in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse on Facebook, Each month I ask folks to submit a photograph of a quilt that they want to find out how I would quilt it if it were my quilt. And so each month it's always fun to see what people send in, and then I randomly select one that I want to show you. So today I want to show you Tracy's quilt. Now I really love this one because this is a raffle that just for her guild members. And don't you just imagine that her guild is in like their own little neighborhood, their own little quilting neighborhood, and like each of these neighbors is a little quilty friend living next door to their next little quilty friend. So I love everything about this, Tracy. So one of the things that Tracy was talking about is she didn't quite know what to do in those houses. So I'm just going to zoom in here, and you have choices with houses. You could take the time to go through and like put siding or even brick and build brick right on your house. But man, oh man, does that take time. And obviously my bricks are not straight and my little house would fall down. So you want to use a ruler or mark that. That's just going to take a heck of a long time. One of the things when I was playing, Tracy, with your design is I thought, oh, we could actually stitch actual like windows right into each of these houses and just add little windows, and we could add a doorknob, and there we go, we got a house. So that's certainly an option for you, Tracy. The other thing that I thought is how much fun would it be to stitch out a little quilt block above the door of each of these. All right, let's see if I can do a friendship star on the fly. So, I bet I can't. Over here. All right, sort of, kind of. So to stitch out a friendship star in above the doorway of each of these, I thought would be super cute as well. Again, it would take some time. So then I thought, well, how can we do this and make it special, but not take so much dang time? And so I thought, you know, what my guild means to me is friendship and love and support. So I thought, you know, above each of these little guild members' houses, a little heart above each of these little guild members' houses would be, as they march around their little quilty neighborhood, would be super, super adorable. And I thought, well, while I'm right there at the door, what if I just put a little diamond in each of those? So when I do my heart, what if I put a little diamond in each of the door frames? Okay, so let's look at, I'm gonna hide that one, and let's look at what I did here. So there's all of my little hearts marching all the way around my quilt top, and what I thought is, how am I going to get to those hearts? Because I don't want to start there. That's not my entry portal for the shape. Really, the best place to enter this house shape is going to be in one of the corners. So right there would be a good spot. Right here would be a good spot. Even if I could think of a way I could come in at the tip of the roof. So any of those are nice little portals of entry. And so if I just do a back and forth refrigerator coil, not quite matchsticks, and then here I go. Now I'm at the portal where I can do my heart, I can do my diamond, and I continue on. And now I'm up here and I can drop into this roof. And I could do shingles, you know, I can make this really like realistic, but goodness, that would take a lot of time. So instead what I'm going to do is just an arc to the top, a teardrop, feather, and an arc to the bottom. And now I'm going to continue on with my little wormy refrigerator coil, and now I'm ready to continue on and deal with anything else that I want and continue on around my quilt. Okay, so that would allow me a plan to do all of my little houses. So let's take a look at that. Why can't I? Oh, I know why I can't. It's because I got my... Okay, so there we go. So there's all of my little houses done with their hearts and their diamonds on the doors and their swags on the roof. And so I haven't connected these yet, right? I wouldn't stitch each of these individual houses out because it would mean I have to break my threads each time. I'm just trying to show you kind of how my brain works and how I break down a quilt, how I think about it, and then I'm going to start to consider my portals and consider the actual path I'm going to take. So the next thing I want to deal with are those 4 cornerstones, and she's got some 9 patches there in those 4 cornerstones. And so what threw me on this, Tracy, is this skinny border on the outside. Let me zoom in because that skinny border is the same scrappiness. See how this is all scrappy neutrals? This kind of floats. So it's not like a block where I could treat this block as one unit and do something in there. Because it looks off-centered if I do that, because of this outside, the skinny outside scrappy border that kind of allows everything to float. So then I started thinking about how can I tie in what's going on the houses to these areas on the outside. And I thought, well, if I can actually put a little heart motif over that 9 patch, I'm going to travel down and then I'm just going to use a meander. Just a little squiggly meander, wormy line. And I'm going to come down and I'm going to put another heart. And the reason I just chose that meander is so that I can then meander and incorporate that skinny border and work myself around and keep on trucking and work myself around and use that meander to really travel and kind of break the wall of the block. And by the way, this is one of my favorite things to do, is to kind of combine small borders into one bigger border. Okay, so now I'm coming around here and I'm going to leave myself an exit room. So did you see that when I came around this roof, I went around the outside of this triangle on this goose, flying goose lid to this house, roof to the house, and that'll give myself room to exit. All right, so for this tree, I'm gonna come around and just fill in. And I'm not gonna deal with the tree just yet, but I'm gonna give myself room to exit. I'm gonna sneak through here, and I'm gonna fill that in. I'm gonna sneak through here, and I'm just giving myself room to exit. You'll see what I mean by exit here in just a second. Now I'm ready to tackle the top of my tree, but before I do, I'm gonna go ahead and fill this in. Okay, I'm at the top of my tree. And then my little pine trees, I wanted to add little boughs, little pine boughs. So just a curved, little pine tree boughs down the trunk. Yeah, and then I'm going to, in this case, what I did is I just wiggled up here and snuck and kept wiggling. But what I'm hoping the smarty pants in the room have seen is that when I came down the trunk, that was my opportunity to go straight across and catch and do this next house. Yeah, so I hope you're seeing that I can combine those. All right, so let's look at what this looks like. So there we go. I'm going to zoom in a little bit because it's a little hard to see, but you can see out here. That's where we're at. We got all of our little pine trees, got their boughs, all of our houses have their kind of shingles on them, and they've got their little rooftops on them. So now I want to start talking about the feathers swag. So I told you one of my favorite things is to combine smaller borders into one, and there's 3 small borders here, and this is the dead center of the border. And notice the miters are already given to us because the miter's in with the piecing. And so one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm going to just do a figure 8 through the middle here to give me my keystone feathers, and then I'm going to chalk out a spine. And then I'm going to pick my favorite feather, whatever I want to do, and then I'm going to start filling the feathers out. But I'm going to treat all 3 of those pieces of fabric as one unit. Come down the spine, kiss that terminal, the keystone feather at the beginning, and work my way. And the miter is my boundary. Right, I've got to stay inside my fence, and then for this last one I would just put a terminal feather on the end and head back down and do that on the other side as well. All right, so let's take a look at what that looks like. Okay, so let me zoom in so you can see a little bit better. So you can see the feathers are on all 4 sides. Let me zoom out. Combining those 3 borders into one. And then I'm going to deal with these snowballs. These snowballs are awesome, but I'm going to go super traditional with these snowballs, and I'm just going to do a crosshatch. And so I'm going to start in this lower corner, and I'm going to go up to this corner. Now, first, before I do any diagonal lines, I would definitely go around this block, this area, to ditch, to stabilize it. And then I'm going to sneak down the ditch, and I'm going to head to this corner. And this is a very traditional path to take for cross-hatching. And we have a downloadable worksheet that you can save and refer to as you look at cross-hatching that goes through this whole path so that you can work right along with me and follow and learn more about cross-hatching. So we put a link there up on the screen that you can go and grab it. But you'll also find a lot of great worksheets and tutorials in our Learning Center over at quiltedjoy.com. And we really have focused a lot on machine quilting, both sit down and stand up. So don't think that if you are working on a sit down machine that you can't do this. You absolutely can. So there's my cross hatching. So if you want to see how I did the cross hatching and the path that I took laid out in a diagram, go to our website and get that downloadable. Finally, I want to deal with this outside border. And so with this outside border, what I did was just some beadboard. So I started here in the corner and I put a heart in the cornerstone, and then I went up and over, snuck around the outside, a double line, snuck around the outside, a double line, snuck around the outside, a double line. I would have ditched this first, right, so that it's stable. But beadboard is just parallel lines, double lines, and because I'm only going along, I'm going on the outside edge of the quilt, and I'm using the ditch to just do a little tiny sneak and then back up, and my longer sneak is on the outside of the quilt. If I have any thread buildup, it's only for a short span, and if I'm not super accurate in the seams, you're not going to see it either. All right, so I'm going to come over, I'm going to go down, I'm going to put a heart in my cornerstone, I'm going to head out, and then I'm going to do the same thing down this side. Ooh, went too far. And of course I would use a ruler for that. All right, so let's see what that looks like. Tracy. All right, there's that one that we did. One more, there you go. All right, Tracy, there you go. We want to see it when you're done. Of course, Tracy, you don't have to do what I'm showing you to do, but that's how I would do it if it were my quilt. But I'm interested to see what ideas you have, Tracy, and how you choose to do your guild's quilt. And I can't wait to see it. So post it, Tracy. Post it over in the Clubhouse, because we all want to see that, and we want to see what you're working on too, because we love, so I'm nosy, right? We've established that, and I want to see what all you guys are working on as well. And so in the Clubhouse, we have had some really wonderful quilts over in our Facebook group in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse. So I just want to show you some of the ones that have been posted over the last month. So Amy took some of our designs that we did in June, where we talked about that curled feather, and we've talked about that wishbone filler design, and really made this a beautiful, beautiful custom quilt. Nice job, Amy. Roger posted this one. Don't you love that giant red border that just kind of hugs that whole quilt? Beautiful colors, Roger. Love everything about this. And then Roger chose a lovely heart pantograph to go across the quilt, and with that many fabrics and that many colors and that much going on, the pantograph was just the perfect choice for it, Roger. Good job. Roger also posted this one that he did for his sister, and he did free motion on the inside. Don't you love how Roger filled up kind of the spaces he had with some echoing, and that really draws attention to the design, as well as gets the density level that he was looking for. And then he used a pantograph for the outside border for the wandering leaves there. And Claudia, you may remember we featured Claudia's quilt in our design roundtable a few months ago, and I showed Claudia how I would quilt it if it were my quilt, and then Claudia took some of those ideas and meshed them with her own and ran with it. And Claudia, you did such a great job, and don't you love the picture of her garden? Claudia, you're going to have to come and show me how to take care of my garden, because I'm clueless. I do not have a green thumb. I can't figure it out. So so you have a beautiful garden and a quilt, Claudia. Diana, this is stunning. I absolutely love everything about this. So this was a laundry basket quilt, and she did some custom quilting on it, and it's just absolutely glorious. The quilting complements the piecing so well. Nice job, Diana. Diana also posted this one, also a laundry basket quilt, and it's just lovely how she took those setting triangles that we were just talking about, and she placed those designs in the setting triangles that are created from the piecing of those trees. Lynn, this one, I love the gradation. Don't you love this, how it goes from light to dark? There's so much movement. And then, so Lynn did an all over edge to edge pantograph with this, and it just, it adds so much texture and design to it. Great job, Lynn. Athena, you did such a fabulous job on this. She used rulers and feathers, and it's just so striking. And I love that she got artsy fartsy with her pictures. You see it's like on an old tractor there. I love it. I love it. You did a great job, Athena. I love all your colors. And if you notice that skinny sashing, which could be a little intimidating, she just used an outline, and that skinny sashing was a great treatment for it. So good job, Athena. Melissa posted this one, so dramatic, and it's got eagles on it, and it's very patriotic, and she did a beautiful job piecing that. I don't know if it's a quilt of valor or if it's just one for her, but it's a gorgeous job. Lori, I love how you fit feathers in a square on here, so great job. And then notice how she did those pinwheel blocks. So one portion of the pinwheel was feathers, and the other portion, the pink portion of the pinwheel, is just a lowercase e. So it gives her a place to travel, it's simple, and it lets the feathers be the star. So nice job, Lori. So we want to see what you're working on. So post it in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse, because I would love to see what you have under your needle. So don't forget to go to the Clubhouse. And then if you would take the time to review us on Google, I would be much appreciative. And I read every single one. And then don't forget, on Wednesday, September the 2nd at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Pacific, we're going to do feathers in diamond shapes, feathers in diamond shapes. And join us on social media. We are on Facebook. You can go to the Quilted Joy page there on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. I post a little bit more kind of private day in the life sort of stuff over on Instagram. And then of course we're on YouTube as well, and you can find a lot of great videos and tutorials there on YouTube, as well as over in the Learning Center at the quiltedjoy.com website. So I really appreciate all the time that you spent with me today, and I hope that you came away with some good food for thought, and I will see you in the Quilted Joy Clubhouse on Facebook. Thanks so much, you guys. Bye-bye.